I'm sure you guys have seen articles that talk about common threads that winners or the world's top entrepreneurs have in common. For me, I've been observing this for a while. I've been thinking about it for a while, especially with the Olympics going on this year. What are the observable ingredients that every winner has? What are the things that are required to be the best of the best, to be great? And some of them are, there's a couple things I want to point out in the four things that I'm about to go through. A couple of them are going to make life harder for people. Like these qualities, these traits, I think they are very directly related to living a challenging life, because people around you won't understand you. They'll lead to you being misunderstood. But these four things, when I observe like the world's best of the best, so talking about people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, whether you love them or hate them, these are, or Jeff Bezos even, like these are common things that you see in their personalities. And so I think these are clearly linked to levels of success. I would also include Alex Hormozi in just about all of these as well. So number one, again, there's four here. I'm going to roll through each one. Number one is conviction. So yes, that sounds really simple, but what does it really mean in in plain English? It's a delicate balance of openness with resistance. It's like you're convicted enough to focus on the thing and do the thing, get the thing done, but you're also open enough to be like, okay, yeah, we should build an iPhone, or we should build a tablet, or we should do something else that might be in your periphery or outside of. And so it's this really beautiful sliding scale of knowing when to be resistant and knowing when to be open. That is what I think like a winner's conviction looks like. The next piece of conviction is they act quickly, they build momentum. And this goes into kind of when to have resistance, right? So some people might be like, oh, that's a dumb idea, whatever. But it's like once you've made the decision, which I've talked about, Myron Golden talks a lot about what a decision is and like the Latin root of that word and what it comes from. But it's like once you make that permanent, direction, you set your compass, that's your North Star, your intention set, you're locked and loaded, you've made a decision, they act quickly, they build momentum. And then if they make a mistake, they make it right? So you change your beliefs with if you get newer and better information that says what you were working on was wrong, they change their beliefs, they pivot, they adjust. But they rarely wait for the perfect intel to act on a thing. So that's number one, is conviction. Number two is intensity. So this starts to veer into the world of being misunderstood. I think this is a big one that a lot of people, they'll kind of get criticized. I'll go into this as I read through it, but people can be misunderstood for taking their purpose so seriously. They're focused on their assignment. So in their mind, they're doing something they love. I think a really good example of this is Alex Hormozi, right? So people criticize him a lot because he's like, I don't take weekends off or this or that, or he doesn't go to family events, and people just like chew him apart on how he should do it and that he needs to take time off and he's going to get burnt out and whatever. But others fail to see that he's doing what he loves and he loves what he does. And so Alex understands his assignment. Myron Golden understands his assignment. Steve Jobs understands his assignment. Just because you're experiencing burnout or because burnout's a real thing for other people doesn't mean that like don't confuse their intensity with them being unhappy. And I think that's probably the big one, right? So it's like Alex is a good example. Another one is like Myron speaks really loudly and really passionately. Like when you listen to him speak, he's very intense. His speaking is very intense. His message delivery is very intense. It's not because he's mean. He just understands his assignment, and he's locked and loaded. He's intense. He's focused on it. It's the same with Hormozi. His behavior, his attitude, his actions are very intense. And then it's because he's all into his assignment. I think another way at looking at it is, when you think of Top Gun, right? Like you watch that movie Top Gun, the intensity of training and being a pilot, like thinking about world in all of the dimensions of, it's hard enough to drive a freaking car. If you've ever driven a boat, it's like now you have to worry about the depth above you and below you and all these other things, right? I can't imagine doing that at 500 miles an hour. It's a very intense thing. You have to be so focused, right? But don't confuse intensity with a lack of fun or lack of enjoyment. I think when you watch that movie, you get a real sense that they're enjoying what they're doing as they're going through and doing training or doing the missions. Like, and yes, it's a movie, but I assume in real life that people enjoy flying at 500 miles an hour and having 1,000 Gs so much that they can't even breathe. And so intensity is oftentimes misunderstood as people have the wrong life, they're focused on the wrong things, they're not happy, they're just a slave to their work. And I don't think that's the case. I think intensity is clearly a requirement if you want to win, especially in entrepreneurship. So number 1 is conviction. Number 2 is intensity. Number 3 is probably the last one that I'll go into that's leads a lot of people to being misunderstood. And this is urgency. And I think a good way to start this off is if you've ever read the book Never Split the Difference by Christopher Voss. He has 3 different types of, I forget what he calls it, if they're personalities or whatever, but he has the analyst, so someone that's always, that they analyze things. You have the accommodator. I don't know, I would liken that to like a yes man or a yes person. And then you have the assertive, which is like not aggressive. They can be sometimes like veer on the side of being pushy. They know what they want. And so there's all these different ways. These 3 examples I think are really cool because that book is fantastic. And these personality traits, if you were to look them up, analyst, accommodator, assertive from Never Split the Difference book, they're a really good depiction on how we process the world differently. Regardless of the type of person that you are, any of these people can embrace urgency. And I think a good way to think about this is reality. What's the reality that we live in? Your clients, the people you serve, your friends, your family, yourself, we're all dying. We're not going to be here forever. So make a decision and do the thing, or make a decision and don't do the thing. A lot of people, they think that if they put the decision off forever, something will happen. Like they'll have better information or whatever. Indecision is a decision. And so the longer you put off making a decision, you have already made the decision. And it's the decision by default, which is probably not going to yield the result that you want. So I think even when I look at, especially when you look at salespeople, right? Go look at some of the top sellers at any company. They all have a level of intensity. They all have a level of urgency. You can take that to the bank. They're responding to incoming messages pretty quickly if they want to close that deal, right? They're not ghosting people. They're getting back and forth. Like, urgency is an absolute key. It's also really important for momentum. Tony Robbins talks a lot about momentum. Momentum is critical. Like, don't stop the train. Like, keep things going. Urgency is a huge piece that you see across the board in all of these people. And that's not to say that they don't make mistakes or whatever, but they're not worried about making them. Their desire to get the thing done has a high level of awareness that this window of opportunity is not going to last forever, whether it's venture capital, whether it's the people they're here to serve, whether it's their own life. Urgency is huge. Conviction, intensity, urgency, and the last one is consistency. I won't go into a whole lot of detail on this. Consistency it's not as rare as urgency or intensity in my mind. I think you see people that are pretty consistent, albeit not always with the right things for where they want to be, not right for me, but right for them. And so consistency, I've said this many times, I think the gym is a good place to go build that. And also just like a healthy lifestyle, right? Figuring out the kind of food that you want to eat and meal prepping and all that can help you get into a routine of consistency. And that it's just so wild how that starts to like pour into your work life or your home life. Just something as small as going to the gym for half an hour 2 times a week all of a sudden becomes, for me, has become 6 days a week, and there's a whole meal plan around it, and there's like meal prep and all this other stuff. And it's like, because I do the gym thing, I'm like, I don't do alcohol like I used to because that would hurt my gains, and like all these other things are involved, and it's an easier thing to build out. But consistency, obviously, in this conversation is with regard to doing the thing that will make your business grow. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've talked about this in previous videos, we're rewarded for coming up with ideas. Like literally, venture capitalists are looking for ideas. You launch a company, you get funding, and so you kind of go back to like shiny object. And that's why a lot of CEOs have this problem. A lot of founders have this problem. But be consistent with the things that work, like rinse and repeat, right? So it's like, I love the analogy from Daniel Priestley on like Taylor Swift and Coldplay they're not rewriting the songs every concert. They're playing the same crap from 10, 20 years ago every show. And yes, there are some new songs, but it's like, you get the idea. The cadence of new releases is way infrequent compared to how many shows they'll do in a year. So the 4 ingredients you need that I've observed that every winner has is conviction, intensity, urgency, and consistency. I hope these help you, and I'll see you in the next one.